Hey everyone! Today I'm diving into some exciting updates straight from Figma Config 2025, and one of the biggest ones is the new auto layout upgrade. Let's take a closer look. Hey everyone! Welcome back to Figma Fusion Studio. I'm creating a new artboard and selecting a desktop frame. By default, the frame is now set to auto layout. If you remember from earlier versions, auto layout had three main directions: vertical, horizontal, and wrap. Vertical would stack elements top to bottom. Horizontal would place them side by side, and wrap allowed elements to flow to the next line automatically when they ran out of space. Super useful for responsive layouts. But in the new update, Figma has removed the wrap option. Instead, they've introduced two new layout modes, Freeform and Grid, Beta. These give more flexibility and control. But yes, the removal of wrap might feel like a step back for some use cases. Let's explore how these new options work. In earlier versions of Figma, auto layout confined elements to either vertical or horizontal stacking. While this structure was useful, it often posed challenges when designers aimed for custom alignments or positioning. Achieving such layouts required workarounds like using absolute positioning or complex group structures. With the introduction of the Freeform Layout option, designers can now place and position elements freely within a frame, without the constraints of traditional auto layout directions. This enhancement allows for more creative freedom and precision in design. Let's see how it works. Step by step. Designing with Freeform Layout. Start fresh. Begin by deleting any existing elements to ensure a clean workspace. Switch to Freeform mode. In the auto layout settings, change the layout direction to Freeform. This mode allows for unrestricted placement of elements within the frame. Add a title, insert a text element at the top of the frame, and label it Dashboard to serve as your page title. Incorporate a dropdown. From My Assets panel, drag and drop a dropdown component beneath the title. Position it according to your design preference. Customize freely. Continue adding and positioning elements such as buttons, charts, or widgets anywhere within the frame. Now, we can position each element wherever we want, no limitations. The title can be moved down, the drop-down duplicated and repositioned, and the same goes for the input box and the button. The Freeform Layout grants you the flexibility to design without the constraints of traditional vertical or horizontal stacking. Everything can be freely arranged. How super cool is that? Will it work flexibly without any limitations? Exactly. For now, we're just exploring how Freeform Layout behaves in basic use. Whether it truly works without limitations will become clearer as we start applying it in real-world scenarios like full dashboards, complex layouts, or responsive views. But so far, it's looking like a much-needed and promising upgrade. Now let's test the other option, Grid, which is currently in beta. Since it's still under development, we can expect a few bugs and future improvements. Now I'm not deleting anything. I just clicked on the vertical layout, and as expected, everything aligned vertically in a straight column. Let's experiment by switching to the new grid layout using the same design.
Ooh.
Super cool. You can now see that all the elements are aligned neatly into a grid. It's showing 3 columns and 11 rows. Just like the previous wrap option, here you get 2 gap controls, one for the gap between columns and another for the gap between rows. There are 2 more controls added for adjusting padding, one for left and right, and another for top and bottom. When I adjust the left and right padding, you can see it adds space between the content and the artboard edges. The same goes for top and bottom. It creates spacing above and below the elements inside the frame. Now let's try the gap options. I'm updating the gap between columns to 30 pixels, and as you can see, the space between each column has increased. Next, I'm updating the row spacing to 24 pixel, which adjusts the space between each row accordingly. As the last option, you'll notice a grid selection panel showing something like 3 into 11, which means 3 columns and 11 rows. When you click on it, you'll see a table-style selector, similar to what we use in Confluence or Word when creating tables. You can simply hover to choose how many columns and rows you want. As you adjust the selection, you'll see the grid updating, live on the artboard, highlighted in blue. Currently, there's no option to change the grid color, but that's something we might see in a future update. All of this is part of the new auto layout grid system. Now let's check how it behaves on the actual artboard. You'll also notice input boxes where you can manually type the number of columns and rows. This is a great addition because sometimes it's hard to visually count the grids, especially when they're tightly spaced. Manually entering the values makes it much easier and more accurate. Kudos to Figma for adding this. While hovering over each column, you might notice a small blue circle appearing on the left and top of the artboard. When you hover over the circle, it shows the label Auto. This means each row and column is currently using automatic sizing. Just click on it and it turns into an editable field. You can now enter a numeric value, for example. I'll update it to 100 pixels and you'll see the row height increase accordingly. There's another cool feature. When a row is highlighted, just click and drag the line to adjust its height manually. Again, kudos to Figma for this powerful enhancement. The same applies to columns as well. You can either type in a specific value or simply click and drag to adjust the column width. It updates instantly, giving you precise control over your layout. This makes working with grids incredibly flexible and intuitive. If you want to switch a row or column back to auto value, just type auto in the input field, and it will reset to auto sizing. Currently, this grid system isn't linked with variables. But in the future, Figma may allow linking grid styles with variables so you can dynamically change the layout mode as needed. While resizing the artboard, you'll notice it adjusts perfectly when column widths are set to auto. Now let's try using a static value. I'm setting the first column width to 500 pixels. As I resize the artboard again, look at that the first column stays fixed at 500 pixels, just like a minimum width setting. The remaining columns adjust automatically because we didn't assign them specific values. This setup is great for responsive designs. If variables are integrated into this later, it could become even more powerful. Honestly, I'm still exploring how all of this works since it's a brand new feature from Figma. Next, let's try rearranging the items inside the grid. Select any item, for example, a drop-down, and drag it to another column. You'll see that it snaps perfectly to the top left of the new column, aligning properly. Now, let's test what happens when you drag and drop one element over another. I'm moving the dashboard title into a different column, and wow, it realigns automatically. The drop-down component has shifted to the new column as well. This is awesome and super smooth. You might notice that the dashboard text is overlapping with another element while resizing the artboard. Let's try fixing it using another auto layout technique. Honestly, I'm not even sure how well this will work, but let's give it a shot. First, update the column width to auto. Then, select the dashboard title and apply auto layout to it. Set both gap and padding to 0 pixels. Next, set both the frame and the text inside it to fill width. Now, try resizing the artboard again. Wow, it worked! Even I didn't expect that. Super smooth fix. Now, let's delete all the elements from the artboard and try this layout with images instead. Even shapes might behave similarly, but for now, I have a set of images ready. I'm selecting all the images, resizing them to a consistent size, and then copying and pasting them into our artboard. Let's see what happens next. The images are properly spanned across the first few columns. This layout looks aligned and structured. If I'm not wrong, this behaves similar to the old wrap mode. The items are flowing from left to right and then wrapping to the next row automatically. I've pasted 7 images, and you can see they've taken up the first 7 columns, just like I set up earlier. Next, let's try updating the number of columns. Let's go to the layout options. Now we have 3 columns, and I am increasing to 4. The images automatically realigned to fit within the first 3 columns, but the new 4th column remained empty. Normally, we'd expect the images to reflow across all columns, including the new one. Let's see if that behavior improves in future updates. Next, try with less cement, and go to the layout option and reduce the number of columns to 2, but it didn't allow me to go below the 2 count. That seems to be a bug. As mentioned earlier, since this feature is still in beta, it's understandable to see a few limitations and unexpected behaviors. Now let's try rearranging the images just like we did earlier with form elements. I dragged one image to the top of another column, and yes, it's working as expected. The image gets properly realigned within the grid. Next, I wanted to resize an image. When I tried resizing, both height and width were changing together because the aspect ratio was locked by default. So, I unlocked the ratio and then resized just the height. Now it fits perfectly within the column. Resizing works properly with control over individual dimensions once the ratio is unlocked. This is a brand new feature, so it might not have solid guidelines just yet, but the possibilities are exciting. Keep exploring and experimenting. There are many more features from this update that I haven't covered today. In this video, I focused only on the main auto layout grid feature. Like the video if you found it useful, share it with your circle, and don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss upcoming videos. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.